I'm excited to be joined today by Ajay Pondicheery, the co-founder of Curb Hero. And we're going to dive into Curb Hero, what it all does, and why it may be beneficial for you as a solo agent or team. So, Ajay, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Elena.
Yeah, so to start it off, I want to go back to the beginning. Can you share where the idea of Hero came about and why you created it?
Yeah, so the idea was actually not mine. It was my wife's, and the reason it came about is she's in the mortgage business, and when we were looking for our first home, we saw firsthand that a lot of agents we were doing open houses. We were visiting them, and even though we had some agents in mind that we wanted to use for the actual transaction, we would visit a lot of open houses. We actually went to over 50. And I have a background in software, mostly in e-commerce, and I was just surprised that agents were still using pen and paper. I think all but one of the agents that we met at these 50 plus open houses was just using pen and paper, and some weren't even really making an effort to get us to sign in, which I thought was a missed opportunity. And I distinctly remember the one agent that had an app, and I was like, "Oh, they have an app to get our info." They actually couldn't use the app because they didn't have internet at the listing, so they didn't get our info. And then it got me thinking. And then we actually met the agent that we went with at an open house. We didn't know them before, but they just knew the market so well that we decided to work with them, even though my wife, being in the mortgage industry, had other agents that she had in mind. And then we fast forward a little bit, and I decided to just create a proof of concept for a digital sign in that didn't require the internet. And I just gave it to my wife Julie's agents that she works with regularly, and they just loved it. And it just kind of took off from there. And then we just made it its own thing. We made it publicly available in all of the app stores and on the web. And eventually we just built a whole company around it.
Yeah, so to piggyback off of what you shared, a lot of agents have a fear of going digital, whether they think it might make someone upset to have to use an iPad, or they might think it might be too complicated or take up too much time. So can you share why would someone switch away from the traditional method of pen and paper to an app?
I totally appreciate the hesitancy around switching from something that seemingly has always just worked. Um, the main benefit, well, there's a couple, but the main one is just around time saved, and especially at and after the open house, and just with the trend of people writing less, it's handwriting has gotten worse and worse. And when people are presented with anything where they're signing in and there's this potential that there could be some follow up after, then mysteriously, their handwriting gets much worse. And sometimes they put in fake info. And then the agent, after a whole weekend of being at an open house, taking time away from their personal life, they're just not left with a lot of leads. And maybe none of the leads are actually usable. So going digital definitely solves that. And then what happens to the information after? Well, most agents will want it in a CRM so they can follow up with these prospects, the ones that don't have representation, and then transcribing from a sheet of paper any leads that are legit with good emails and phone numbers to the CRM. That's a manual process. So when you start digital, all those things get so much easier for the agent. And as far as the setup of Curb Hero, that's something, or setup of an app in general, that is for a lot of folks that aren't familiar with technology and working with software, that can be a hurdle. With Curb Hero, we've done a lot to make the process super streamlined. We have daily webinars, and we really do try and keep the app, the user experience, super simple. But yeah, I think that's definitely something we're cognizant of.
Yeah, and something I just thought of that I hadn't thought of before is eco-friendly. You aren't wasting paper if you want to think about the environment. But yeah, I remember several years ago, I worked for a real estate team as their administrative assistant, and exactly what you said, that was my job. It was full-size papers with a whole paper taken up just for a little bit of it with the name, email, phone number, and there were so many scribbles, or maybe the pen they used would leave ink and then they would smudge it. And so I would have to spend so much time of my day Googling to try to figure out, okay, let me try to find their email some way, reverse searching it through platforms. And it was just not a good use of my time. That's probably a very common theme is agents do that, sign in, they send it off to an assistant, and then that assistant has to spend time and bill those hours when that could have just been automated. Something interesting I saw, I don't think we talk about it at our last, when I first talked to you, I saw on your website that you mentioned something called a touchless sign-in option. Can you share what that is?
Yeah, so this came about during COVID when there was just a lot of directives around not having pen and paper at an open house because there was just a lot of caution around any kind of interaction, spreading of germs, and that kind of thing. And so, and for those of us that remember, QR codes were this kind of flash in the pan technology that just kind of came and went. In Asia, they've always been kind of popular, but in the U.S., they just went away, and they just didn't come back until COVID. And then all of a sudden, everybody wanted touchless. If you went to a restaurant, you wanted a touchless menu. You didn't want to have to handle a paper menu. And the QR code became built into every phone's camera. So pretty much at this point, every single smartphone has a QR code reader right into their camera. And so now someone can just take their camera, their smartphone, point the camera at a QR code, and it'll load whatever website the QR code's associated with. And that provides a touchless sign-in. And the cool thing about that is, well, with the person scanning it from their phone, there is no internet required for the agent because the QR code doesn't require internet. It's just like a piece of paper, and we provide branded ones like this. The agent can create their own branding and frame it or laminate it. And the other cool thing is that when someone loads it up on their phone, it's a form, and I can show you what that form looks like as well. But when someone loads a form on their own phone, usually the autofill process kicks in, and it makes everything just one tap or just a couple taps, and they're all done filling out the form, and it's got their correct info. They would need to go through the extra effort of going in and changing what the autofill is in order to fake out the info, which most people aren't. They're not going to put in that kind of effort.
Yeah, I love that. That solves a lot of what I had mentioned earlier of it's going to prevent a bottleneck of everyone in a line waiting to fill out an iPad and then someone accidentally typing in something wrong on the iPad. But also it's like so convenient for the person, not requiring that internet, and then the data accuracy where a person just have to click twice if they have that autofill in their phone. They don't want to go back and spend time like typing in something fake. They just want to move on with their day. So they say, sure, autofill and then submit. So I love that.
Boom. Yeah.
And I thought that was funny. You had the QR code handy, so you probably use that often to share what it looks like.
Yeah, we went pretty big on QR codes after we saw the shift in the sign-ins going from just the on-screen people using their iPad and putting their info to QR code. And we just saw the behavior change so quickly that we put a lot of new features around it, like the QR codes are branded with the agent's logo and color palette. We have these templates that they can use. And so, yeah, our designers have gone a little nuts with it.
That's awesome. Well, so you just mentioned a little bit ago that you could share what a form looks like. Do you mind doing that right now? I'm sure people are curious what it looks like.
Yeah. Let me just load that up. So I'm just going to share my iPad screen. So our app works on iOS devices, so iPhones and iPads, as well as Android devices, so Android phones and tablets, and then we also have a web app. So hopefully you can see my screen right now. Let me know if you can.
Yes. Yep.
So for new users, they wouldn't see all these listings. We have one sample listing that every new account gets, and that way they have something that they can play around with and edit. But this is what the on-screen sign-in looks like for a for the Curb Hero sign-in process. And so you can imagine this as if you're in an open house and you're a visitor, this is what you'd see on the kitchen table or the dining room, or the kitchen counter or the dining room table, instead of the pen and paper sign-in. And so oftentimes agents will put their tablet or their iPad in a stand, or they'll have their laptop open. And to what we were just talking about with the QR code earlier, they may also decide to place QR codes at different parts throughout the property. So that way, if the visitor doesn't sign in using the on-screen sign in at the front of the property, they still have the opportunity to, if they get into a good conversation, just casually ask, hey, want to make sure you signed in, because we're automatically going to text you all the details about the property as soon as you do. And around saving paper, this also allows you to not have to bring the printed brochures. A lot of agents really love their printed brochures, but this at least gives the option to say, hey, we're going digital when it comes to sending the property details. Because with Curb Hero, there's some follow-up built in, and that allows agents to send follow-up texts. And if they choose to set up their CRM, they can have much more extensive follow-up.
Very cool. Love that.
And sorry, I went on a tangent there, but this QR code here on the bottom left, you can actually scan it. Any viewers of this video can scan a QR code and see what the touchless sign-in looks like. And then if you'd like, I can go on my screen and actually show what the on-screen sign-in flow looks like too.
Yeah, let's go ahead and dive into that.
Okay, cool. So I just want to quickly point out everything on here is branded for the agent. If we recognize the agent's email address, we'll actually update their logo, their color palette, and all that. So the first time use will actually be completely branded, and the agent can tweak any of that if they want to. I'm just going to make a totally fake name just so we can reference it later if needed. And so I mentioned briefly that my background's in e-commerce, and so we applied a lot of the design and UX thinking that works in e-commerce, specifically around checkout, where it's, the checkout flow in e-commerce is something it's looked over and reviewed, and the whole goal is to get as many people through the checkout flow as possible. And so the fewer steps, the fewer keystrokes, all of that plays into just single digit improvements in that checkout conversion rate. And so that's why you see, as soon as you start typing email, we propose the 4 most popular email domains, because that can save 10 or more keystrokes, which all translates into a higher conversion rate. The other piece that's important is Curb Hero is actually free for individual agents. Lenders can come in and activate a subscription to pair with their agents. And that's why you're seeing this mortgage question here. And so this is a demo lender that's paired with my agent account here. Agents can add their own preferred lender. They can pick from other lenders that are already on Curb Hero and available to pair. Or if they want, they can actually disable the lender functionality entirely.
Yeah, that's a nice little feature.
Yeah, and then after that, there's 3 additional questions. Agents don't need to add all 3. In this case, I think I've only added 2 to the demo, but it can be anything they want to ask. And then it starts back over for the next person to sign it.
Simple enough. So
Yeah.
is there any sort of customization someone can do to that form?
Yeah, so there's quite a bit. And so I can just show you what that looks like as far as the customization goes. Everything from the property photos, which if we recognize the address, will auto-populate a lot of the details, including the property photos. But so the layout, right now my iPad's in a landscape layout, so it's wider than it is tall. But if people want to use a portrait layout, because that's maybe how they have their iPad stand set up, or that's just their preference, we have those as customizations. You can also customize your follow-up text. So by default, we disable the follow-up text, but as soon as an agent decides, hey, I want to follow up with the property details as soon as someone signs in, we auto-populate all of that. So we know their name, we know the property address, and so all that gets put in here. And if they want to change it, they just go in and tap it and they can update it. And here's where the additional questions can all be set up.
Okay, so if I'm hearing right, an agent doesn't have to manually enter in a listing. It gets automatically pulled from MLS.
So that's something that's not yet available, but once they do add the address, and we have the whole, Google autofill. So once they first tap in like the number and the first few letters of the street name, the rest gets auto-suggested. And as soon as they select the address, we attempt to auto-populate everything else.
Oh, okay. Okay. Just one thing. So I see here on this screen you're sharing, and it was one of the questions I had. We've been focusing, because it's the majority of what the product is, we've been focusing mostly on open house sign-in. Are there any other use cases for using Curb Hero besides open house sign-ins?
Yeah, there's been a lot. So there's kind of 2 main categories of use cases outside of open houses. One is just around other kind of events, like client appreciation events. If the agent or the team are doing like a bridal convention or home and garden event and they have a booth, these are great stage of life opportunities to get prospects and build up a database. And so you can use Curb Hero to add a event name. It doesn't need to, like we mentioned, the listing doesn't need to be your listing on the MLS. You can host another agent's open house. But you can also say, hey, I just want to we actually did a demo not long ago. An agent was having a sponsoring a pickleball tournament, and so we created this pickleball listing for them, and that way they could sign in everybody that was participating in the tournament, and that would register them, but it would also have their info if Teresa decides to follow up with them for anything business related as well. So that's one use case, and that was kind of brought about just through us looking at the creativity that agents that were using Curb Hero had. We didn't think of that on our own. And the other one that we can take a little bit more credit for is this dynamic QR code, which essentially allows agents to have a single QR code. They don't need to worry about changing their QR code for every different marketing campaign, but they can use Curb Hero to point the QR code to different content. So let's say this weekend, I'm trying to just promote my open house at 14141 Alondra Boulevard. And this QR code can be they can be printed on all my signs. It can be, postcards, everything. But then next weekend, I want to change the open house. I can just go in here and pick a different property here, and it'll update. And then I can even decide, hey, I don't have an open house, but I do want to promote all these other things on my from my business, first time home buyer seminar, a CMA, for example, and then you can use the QR code to promote that too. And so that's where you're going to see you can load something like this, and so people can pick what call to action they want to go to.
It's sort of like a link tree specifically created for real estate agents.
Totally, that's exactly it.
Yeah. Can you use these on sign writers? Like you can have a QR code on a sign writer and people can scan it to get the information about the property?
Yep, definitely sign writers. And we even have design templates for signs and sign writers that agents can actually just send to their printer and have it printed out with their branding, with their dynamic QR code, or just for them to use as inspiration so they can work with their designer and create a sign writer that has the same effect.
Yeah, that's great. I think I saw somewhere on your website you mentioned that you provide some templates for social media. What are those like, and why would you use those templates?
Yeah, I don't have any examples right in front of me. I'm trying to look at my desk and see if there's something. But yeah, so one of the areas that we are looking more into, because we've created a lot of graphic design tools behind the scenes for Curb Hero, like what makes this QR code branded and inserts the logo in the right place. We're just taking that to the next level and say, what other graphic elements can we bring into the agent's world so that it makes promoting an open house or promoting a new listing, or even if it's, they're trying to do some circle prospecting after a sale or something like that, just sold postcards. We have all of the elements within Curb Hero. We have their branding, we have the photos for the property. And so now we have the ability to create graphics for the agent. And so in any listing on Curb Hero, I'll just go into this one. We have this marketing section, and this is where you can actually pick from different graphic options. So this free marketing graphic pack, the third one down, that will actually put in a request for my design team to just create a bunch of graphics for whether it's just sold or coming soon or new listing or open house, and we'll send the agent all of those, and they'll be social media ready graphics. And then we have other options too, like I mentioned, the signs, the QR scan codes, and much more is coming.
That's cool. I like that idea of this list of things that you provide for free, but then also recommended other companies people can use to couple with Curb Hero. That's a really cool concept. So now to get a little bit more technical with you, can you share a little bit about what happens when a lead fills out a form and what populates in follow-up us?
Yeah, so let me just show you what the lead. So we just had one lead, the one that I filled out during the demo, and so I'll show you that one right here. And so a couple things to point out: we attempt to grab the photo for anybody who signs in. We have a third-party data provider that, with an email or a phone number, can look up a photo, and we try and get background info for folks too from that same data provider. And the goal isn't to say, hey, like this is exactly this type of person. It's more around keeping contacts, because at a busy open house, an agent can meet 50 plus people in a weekend. And so after a while, all the people and the conversations you had and what you have to follow up with those people with can all kind of blur together. And so with a photo and maybe just some background info, you can hopefully jog your memory and say, this is what I told AJ I was going to send him, because he needed a bigger property for his dog. And so the other thing that we do in that area is notes. So this note, I actually texted. We have a process where agents can text notes in, so that way they keep the open house sign-in always running and on their device. And so I texted this note while we were on the demo. And that's another piece of info that we store with the lead. And all of this can be synced to Follow Up Boss, and we also have a Zapier integration, so that opens up integrations with many other CRMs. But with Follow Up Boss specifically, we have this direct integration. And I just switched my account to a different account that has a Follow Up Boss set up. So hopefully you can see that now.
Yes.
And so, yeah, right here in the Follow Up Boss integration, just let me reload this. So I've already added my API key. That's the one thing you need to add in, and then all of the fields that you already have on your Follow Up Boss, including the custom fields, will just show up here, and you just go in and map them. So, for example, so everything's filled out here, but I'll just show you an example of what I mean by mapping. So you can pick from all of the different fields that Curb Hero captures, everything, including the details on the listing. So listing price is one of the fields that we have. So you just pop that in there, and that'll essentially say, okay, take the listing price for every new lead that comes from Curb Hero and send it as a new contact for Follow Up Boss. And in addition to all the fields that we've already mapped, listing price will also be set. And
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, you can do custom fields too.
Yeah, you can do custom fields. We also use the property inquiry field. In the agents that we've talked to and the teams we've talked to, we found that the property inquiry field was one that they've often used with their kind of email follow-up as like a common merge field. So the property address also gets passed into that field. That way, all of the emails will have that context of like, hey, thanks for visiting the open house at 14141 Alondra. It's just more specific that way.
Yeah, I'm going a little off topic for a second, but in a team environment where, let's say, several agents are using Curb Hero, how does it specify, oh, this is Elena's lead, so assign it to Elena, or this is AJ's lead?
So yeah, that's a great question. So this being an agent account, it will bring in the agent's info. So if the agent has their own specific Follow Up Boss account, they would use their Follow Up Boss API key, and that would essentially direct that lead straight into the agent's Follow Up Boss. And if I know that some teams also have kind of a separate process where all the leads will go into the team account, and then someone from the team will distribute the leads across to the appropriate agent. That can also be done, but the API key would just need to match the team account.
Okay, so would each agent have their own individual login if you went the first route of it pulls from their API key, or does everyone log into the same portal here?
Yeah, so you want every agent to have their own account. That way they can have their own personal branding. The leads are tracked down to the agent level, so it's clear who met with each prospect. And then also the API, the integration with Follow Up Boss would be set up there. So if they are putting the leads into their agent specific account, they go straight there. We do have a team admin role now, and so the team admin can set up quite a few of the elements for the agent. And one of the high priority items on our roadmap right now is actually letting the team admin go in and set up all of the integrations with Follow Up Boss for the agent, so the agent doesn't have to worry about that. So that's something that's coming soon.
You mentioned roadmap, so I need to ask what else is on the horizon for Curb Hero.
So yeah, we've been spending a lot of time looking at the team use case. And what we recently added are the ability for teams to move listings from one agent to another. That way it makes hosting each other's open houses really straightforward. And so we're really looking at that team use case and trying to go deep and see how can we maximize efficiency for teams that are using open houses as like a big part of their prospecting. And so we're talking to teams regularly. If you talk to a lot of the agents using Curb Hero, many of them have spoke to me directly and or at least given us suggestions. And so a big part of our roadmap is dedicated to just keeping tabs on our users and understanding what they want and then building that into the software. But yeah, as far as themes go, team functionality is a big one. We're also looking at how can we include improve the visibility after the open house for the agent. We are in the process right now of launching a feature that's been in beta. We use AI, we use OpenAI's API to look at all of the information except for the contact info for the leads at the open house. And so that includes the notes the agent left, that includes replies that the leads have sent after getting the text message, that includes the answers the leads have given to the questions like what's your time frame to buy, or do you need to sell another property in order to buy? And we scrub through all that and we propose to the agent, here are the standout leads based off of all of this kind of like fuzzier natural language info, and it synthesizes all that data and then it sends it into a summary for the agent. So that's another area we're looking at. And then I mentioned graphic design. That's another area that we hope to add more value and maybe bring some graphics directly into the app as opposed to making them requests that agents need to make within the app.
Okay, so what you just mentioned sort of helps agents prioritize who to reach out to first if they have several leads from different open houses. And does that information, do you plan on that information being translated into follow-up boss in some way, whether it's like a note or a tag?
Yeah, I think that, so we have a really we have a really powerful integrations technology behind what you're seeing right here on my screen. It allows us to update the integrations and create new types of integrations really quickly. And so I could totally envision us every time a new open house summary is sent, making that some new event or note that can hit a follow-up boss endpoint, so that the contact gets updated with, hey, this is a standout lead, or something else that kind of highlights that contact. Yeah, that would be a use case that would be totally possible once this AI report gets fully rolled out.
Yeah. I have to ask because I know people are curious. You can at least answer the first question. What is the pricing for an independent solo agent to use Curb Hero?
So for an independent agent, it's totally free. So the individual agents can use Curb Hero for free if they want to have their team account and take advantage of all the time saving that having a central team admin can bring to the individual agents. Then there's team accounts that are paid accounts that require subscription, and those subscriptions start at $50 a month. And so that's kind of one of the areas of monetization for Curb Hero. And the other side of it is that if an agent wants to bring on their preferred lender can activate a subscription. And for the lender accounts, if they want to pair with agents, that starts at $20 a month. But yeah, regardless, individual agents can use Curb Hero for free.
That's not something you hear every day whenever you're looking at a new application. So besides, I'm going to put you on the spot one more time, besides it being free and continually updating and innovating, and why would someone choose Curb Hero over other open house sign-in tools out there?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I decided to stop sharing my screen since you're putting me on the spot. I think that open houses, they're not the most exciting prospecting strategy for agents, but they're incredibly effective. We've just gone really deep into the open house prospecting use case. It's easy to say, hey, we've got an open house app, but really it's just a website which requires internet and has very little customization, won't connect to your CRM. A lot of very big like platforms will say, hey, this is an open house app, but we've gone really deep into the use case. Some of the top teams in the country use Curb Hero exclusively for open house prospecting. And it's because we really understand the use case down to that level. And we're just constantly innovating. So if you look at most of the other open house apps out there, they just haven't added a new feature in years. Like QR codes, not even close. New integrations haven't been added in years. Some of them don't have any integrations. And I think probably the best way to understand the difference beyond just those items is to look at the reviews. You can look up any of the other open house app reviews that are in the App Store or on Capterra or G2, and you can just see what their users are saying, and you can kind of get a better idea of, you know, why someone would opt for Curb Hero.
Yeah, yeah, not hiding those reviews and sharing them. That's a huge help. One thing I forgot to ask, you mentioned a little earlier, you have a team. What does support look like? If someone wants to ask a question, are they kind of on their own where that you just have like set help articles, or can they actually ask someone for help? What does that look like?
Yeah, so back to what we talked to originally is there is this hesitancy amongst a lot of agents, especially agents that are veterans in the business and, you know, they've found success doing things a certain way. So what we've done to try and reduce the, you know, the hesitancy that they may feel of trying to introduce something like Curb Hero or a digital solution in their process is lots of help resources. So we have daily webinars that agents can attend. We have, for all of our major features, there's on-demand videos that walk through just the actual setup, and then we detail it in text as well. And we have support that's live chat through all of our apps, and the average support response time is under 15 minutes, and that includes like off business hours, middle of the night support requests. All in, the average response time is 15 minutes. And if you do look at our reviews, you'll see pretty consistently good reviews just about the support itself.
That's so cool to hear. Well, I appreciate your time. One more question before we go. If someone wants to learn more about Curb Hero, where should they go?
Yeah, they can go to our homepage, which is a Curb Hero. It's spelled kind of funny, CURBHE.RO. Or you can just Google Curb Hero and you can find out. And that live chat that I mentioned, it's right there on the bottom right. So if you have any questions about it, just pop the question right in there and you'll get a response really quickly.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. I'm sure people will hopefully be excited about Curb Hero and sign up. And it's a really cool, really needed tool in today's real estate space. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.